Good evening. Welcome to the City of Opa-locka virtual workshop. We call this workshop to continue to address COVID-19 updates and also to just handle some city business in regards to focusing on strategic planning for the commission. So with that said, Madam Attorney, could you go through the emergency protocols that govern our virtual workshops?
Sure. Pursuant to Executive Order number 20-69, issued by the Office of Governor Ron DeSantis on March 20th, 2020, municipalities may conduct meetings of their governing boards without having a quorum of its members present physically or at any specific location, and utilizing communications media technologies such as telephonic or video conferencing as provided by Section 120.54 5B2 of the Florida statutes. The members of the City Commission appearing remotely for this meeting are Vice Mayor Davis, Commissioner Bass, Commissioner Burke, Commissioner Kelly, and Mayor Pygott. An opportunity was given to the public to email the city clerk prior to the workshop, and the city clerk at the appropriate time will state for the record whether there have been any questions, comments, or concerns on the items that we'll discuss this evening for the agenda. This meeting is being streamed live at www.youtube.com/user/City of Opa-locka.
Thank you, Madam Attorney. All right. Madam Clerk, we do a roll call.
Commissioner Bass.
I'm here.
Commissioner Kelly.
Present.
Vice Mayor Davis.
Here.
Mayor Pygott.
I am here. Commissioner Kelly, could you lead us in the invocation?
Our Father and our God, we thank you for all of the many blessings. We thank you, God, for life, health, and strength. Continue to watch over our city, God. Continue to watch over those impacted by COVID-19. Continue, God, to give us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Do those things which are pleasing in your sight. In Jesus' name we do pray. Amen.
Amen. Vice Mayor, want to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Awesome. All right, Madam Clerk, do we have any, could you go over the public comment procedures and state whether or not we have any public comments for this workshop?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So the public had an opportunity to submit public comments for this meeting up until 3:30 p.m. today via email at publiccomments@opalockafl.gov or by calling 786-618-2636 and leaving a pre-recorded message. At this time, Mr. Mayor, there are no comments.
All right. We'd like to continue to encourage the public, please leverage public comments so we can make sure your voices are heard during these times. It's one of the reasons why we do these workshops. We want to make sure we get engagement amongst the whole community. So thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Now moving on to our discussion items. Mr. Manager, you have the floor.
Thank you. One subject that I want to discuss this evening is the city's response to COVID-19. I think that's a very important subject that kind of needs to be discussed. As we are going through this pandemic, as you all know, Miami-Dade County is being plagued more and more with positivity rates skyrocketing, being almost the highest per capita within the state of Florida, and Opa-locka having the highest per capita, top 2 or 3 cities within the city of Florida. This is starting to affect home with our employees and staff. And so what I want to do is first kind of give some basic updates and try to get some input from the commission on next steps as far as our city hall and our city facilities are concerned in regards to potentially shutting down our city operations at 780 Fisherman Street for a 2-week time frame and putting in more precautionary measures at that building and other buildings that the city owns. The testing site, as I stated yesterday during the regular commission meeting, have been averaging over 550 to 650 tests per day. Today, they tested over 600 individuals today. Yesterday, tested 633. So numbers are looking very favorable as far as testing. But as everybody knows, our positivity rate is going up. Yesterday's report, we had 85 reported as COVID positive within the city of Opa-locka. So as those testing is being done, the positivity rates are rising more and more. We're over 1,000 now positive within the city of Opa-locka, based on last numbers as of yesterday. And when we started this tracking, we were at 200, 150, 200, and now we're over 1,000 individuals that are COVID positive that are within the city of Opa-locka zip code. So those are very, very scary and astonishing numbers. And like I said, it's really starting to affect city operations where it's starting to affect employees now and touching each one of us and people that are close to us professionally. So first question to the commission is the thought process of closing 780 Fisherman Street for 2 weeks to do deep cleaning and sanitization of the building, as well as putting other provisions in place, maybe an emergency order, shutting down all non-essential businesses again, limited movement, safer at home, urging people, re-emphasizing urging people to stay at home, and kind of limited movement. This county already has a curfew in place, 10 to 6 a.m. We already have mandatory mask in place. We already have a safer at home order out there. It urges people to stay at home. I want to continue to urge people to stay at home, but I think we need to maybe do a emphasis on that, maybe a renewed PR campaign on staying safer at home and limited movement in order to fight this pandemic, to see if we kind of figure things out. The county has received $14 million to hire or to have individuals from the Florida Department of Public Health to trace the virus. That those are 250 individuals that are being resourced to the Miami-Dade County to start tracing and tracking positivity rates, getting with individuals and making notification to people that have been around individuals that have came up COVID positive. So that's funding that was just established and today, and I saw a contract that was signed by Miami-Dade County to do that. I want to kind of solicit Miami-Dade County for their assistance and maybe providing some assets to the city to assist us in tracking the virus within the city and provide some additional resources. I would like to draft a letter with the support of the commission, maybe the mayor or some commissioners, addressed to the mayor of Miami-Dade County requesting some of those resources to be provided to the city of Opa-locka. So the first question is the thought process of closing City Hall for 2 weeks for deep cleaning, once again, and try to kind of keep our employees isolated, safer at home. And also the campaign of pushing out safer at home within the community, try to restrict movement within the community, not lawfully, not trying to force people to stay in the home, but kind of pushing out a campaign, safer at home, kind of emphasize the curfew and mask wearing, and maybe even have some events where we're passing out masks. And I know Justice kind of working on those things for next week since we have rain coming up this weekend. So we can kind of have a little round robin and get some thoughts of our commissioners, I mean, maybe even potential emergency orders that you guys may want me to execute between now and next week. That would be great.
All right, the floor is open.
Mr. Mayor.
Comments? Commissioner Kelly.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Manager, from my perspective with the numbers continuing to rise, I'm supportive of shutting the building down. I think we should have enough folks to transfer these phones, transfer these calls, but you've had to have employees tested, some cases 2 or 3 times, You've had to spend money, I know, at least from looking at reports, a few times on sanitizing. And I'm not sure that whole temperature thing, the way y'all got it set up, is quite effective. I did hear you just mentioned some other protocols possibly put in place to assist. So from my perspective, it may not be popular with some folks. I know with people are trying to open back up, but from my perspective, I think unless you can show me a tremendous impact economically, because the only thing I can think of is maybe people coming in for permits or something. Anything else I think can be handled from the outside, in and not going into the building at all. But I think we have to do something because I do know, employees are concerned because they're interacting with folks and each other, and it's stressful to go over and have those tests and have to wait for 2 or 3 days or whatever. And I understand now it can even take a little longer because there's so much testing. So it could be 3-day wait or whatever to even get the results. So that's stressful in itself. So I don't really have a problem with closing City Hall down, as you call it. I think you did it before. The essential folks, obviously, you know who they are and have to work, and you can make provisions for that. But it is alarming. And I know from looking at emails, it was scheduled for some kind of caravan on this weekend or whatever was postponed because of rain or potential rain could be coming. I was kind of smiling at that because it's South Florida. You never know what the weather's going to be in South Florida. So y'all already canceled it, but we can't wait too much longer. I know you want to wait for a weekend possibly. We have to push getting that word out through that caravan or whatever it means. As you say, to stay home. We can't necessarily force folks, but we got to push it a little bit harder. I think now we need to let folks see us in the street, and they can see us so they can capture us on their Facebook page and whatever, because that gets around quicker than any press release. But I think we got to step up doing a little bit more. And I am concerned with employees having to go in and out of the building or interacting with folks who may not even know that they've been impacted and having to go home to their families. So I don't have a problem with that unless there's some compelling economic reason of being able to do things. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll listen to my colleagues. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mayor Pryor,
Commissioner Bass?
I echo the sentiments of my colleague as it relates to the closure of City Hall. It is imperative that we do our very, very, very best to keep everyone safe. And like he stated earlier, if there a financial burden on the city, then that would be a different scenario. But we need to do what must be done in order to keep everyone safe. Whatever is in our power to do, we need to do. So I'm in support of it. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Vice Mayor Davis?
Thank you. I'm also in support of closing down City Hall. The manager alluded to it probably be only for 2 weeks. So again, not a long amount of time, but does give time for staff and everyone to quarantine and protect themselves. As far as the Safer at Home order on behalf of the League of Cities, just looking at what other cities are doing. They're also encouraging, safer at home. As you know, the county picked up the curfew, so we no longer have to carry the burden of implementing that locally. It's now countywide. But also safer at home should be encouraged because, as the manager alluded to, limited movement. As far as the emergency order, is concerned. I don't know exactly like where we are with, businesses reopening or if the manager has recommendations as far as, reverting back in the phase opening process. But I would like to hear, his recommendations or just concerns that he has been dealing with along those same lines. As far as the temperature reading, it seems to be effective. I actually had an opportunity to go, to City Hall yesterday and, it read my temperature. I didn't even realize it was, it was a machine. but it was nice to see the new technology, and hopefully moving forward, that works out for us. Thank you.
All right. Oh, hold up. Commissioner Burke, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. We can't see you, but go ahead.
Okay, what about,
Hit the button again. There you go.
There
what
you go.
about now?
Yes, sir. We see
Okay,
you.
now, I concur with my colleagues, the safety and well-being of our employees is a must. And a lot of our employees in that building have kids to go home to. So yes, I concur with my colleagues, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think we all on the same page. As a city, we want to keep everyone in our city safe, including our residents and also our staff. I do want to get into a little more detail when you say closing the city down, because from what I understand, the public can't go up to City Hall 4th floor now. So when you say closing City Hall down, what exactly does that mean?
So basically, Mr. Mayor, shutting down all operations within City Hall to essential employees only. I'll be requesting some feedback from our department heads this evening via email in regards to who is truly essential that needs to be in the building to work, and try to have basically a skeleton crew in the building. So right now, they're doing alternative days. They're doing alternative days work from home. So they're working so many days in the office, so many days at home. That seems not to be effective because the city's employees' positivity rate is still rising drastically, even when we're trying to maintain the number of individuals in 780 fishermen. So we're going to convert from a partial half week in office, half week out of office to all the way work from home, where those individuals don't come into office at all, and they're working from home on a full-time basis. And as well as, I know we do have some departments that do have issues from working from home, so we can kind of limit the amount of individuals in the building and have a skeleton crew of people that must be in the building to work. I think that'd be what I'm recommending at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Has there been a work from home policy and procedure developed for the city yet?
Yeah, so there's a work from home policy for COVID related matters only at this time. We haven't done a comprehensive work from home policy. It is comprehensive, but it is COVID related. So only time we rely on people to work from home at this point is for COVID related matters, or people that are high risk or have medical conditions that are high risk to exposure. So we do have a policy, and I can forward that to the commission if they want to review that policy.
Yes, I definitely like to see that. And when you're saying work from home, shut down City Hall, what about those employees that cannot do their work remotely? And like for public work staff who go out there and clean up, or people who maintain our parks. What does that? What would they do?
So we're speaking of 780 fishermen only. We're not speaking of other city facilities. So Public Works will still be working their regular schedules. They do have the opportunity to social distance more than individuals that work administratively within 780. And I will have a conversation with the Public Works Director if there needs to be any other safety provisions put in place for the Public Works Department. I know they're provided gloves, they're provided with masks. So those are things we're kind of looking at as well. But when I'm speaking of the 780 fishermen and our park facilities at this time, as of about this afternoon. So we're looking at park facilities as well.
Okay. So yeah, I'm in favor of making sure that we're protecting our employees and trying to limit this spread as much as possible. I do want to make sure that we are still in the financial crisis. We still have an operational audit, and there's some very serious challenges that we face as a city that we do need the full support of our employees, our professionals, our paid professionals, to make sure that we accomplish so that we continue to be a city and a respectable city at that. So I would like to get a clear understanding of how that level of performance will continue and what that will look like. and what expectations should we have? One thing I am concerned about is this virus is going to be here for a while, and the quickest we figure out how to work through this virus, the better we'll all be as a community. So what does that look like? And that's what I'm concerned about, because I definitely don't want to see our city, our parks, our medians come into much more disarray because we don't have a fully functional staff. I wouldn't want to see our audits drop behind in terms of finances, the policies and procedures that need to be submitted for our operational audit. A lot of those are very critical to us as a community. And I would like to see what's the plan to make sure that we are still progressing. And if it does slow, what is it going to slow by? And what are we making conscientious sacrifices for to keep our community and our employees safe? And what does that look like, and how we're going to compensate in other areas? So if we can get a little more understanding of that, that'll be very helpful.
Mr. Mayor.
Mayor,
Commissioner Kelly.
thank you. Let me piggyback a little bit on what you said, maybe from a different perspective, but the same concept. Mr. Manager, you said that there are comprehensive plan in place already for how you deal with the folks at home or whatever. And I don't want to see folks just sitting home getting paid doing nothing, but I also recognize, the shutdown and kind of put things on hold for that stress. So I'm kind of was thinking that part of the strategic planning that we're going to talk about later would kind of encompass going forward, because as the mayor said, it's not going away. So whether it's parks, whether it's some of the other departments, I would hope that's part of the recommendation, the thought process you're already thinking about with regard to strategic planning. But as it stands right now, just for an example, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, when they're working at home, when you've done it before, how is the process? I mean, is there, you call them, or how do they have to check in, or how does that work to make sure they're not somewhere out at the mall somewhere, I guess, for lack of a better example, for those 8 hours or 6 hours or whatever?
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what we're looking for. Much more detail on how this will actually work. Go ahead, Mr. Manager.
Currently, the department heads are responsible for checking in with their employees twice per day while they're working at home. Their emails that are required to go out at the beginning of the shift, end of the shift, to placate or kind of confirm the hours worked. Department heads have full access to their employees, and if there's no employee conduct or no performance being done, then that person gets docked time. So if the department is not able to prove through a daily log, that specific work is being done, work assignments are being achieved, or the department is not able to get in touch with that specific staff member, then those matters are kind of addressed directly with the employee, where they're docked personal time or vacation time or whatever other time that they have. There's very, very rare circumstances where I've heard a department head not being able to get in contact with an employee while they're working from home, but it's not unheard of. It is a reasonable expectation to have some employees that have issues working from home. We have that in some departments where we do have issues with employees being able to be productive while working at home. And so those may be the very exceptions that we have, where employees will actually still come to the city hall and work. Because the goal is to reduce the census or reduce the amount of people in city hall. If the census is reduced, of course, it reduces the spread and people being potentially come in contact with somebody that's asymptomatic with COVID-19. So the goal of having 0 people in City Hall may not be an achievable goal, but if you could lessen that number as great as possible with departments that are already very well versed in working from home, such as the clerk's office and community development and city manager's office and public works, as far as their administrative staff. These are departments that are well versed in working from home and have been doing so for the most part during the pandemic. and even more so recently with the hybrid scheduling. Now we get into the finance department, other departments, it gets a little bit more difficult in doing financial transactions from home because there's a lot of training and development that goes in with the daily activities within the finance department. So that department may be a department that still be required to report for work and maybe work from home 1 or 2 days a week, but majority of the time still be in the building to get that coaching and get that access to senior level management to assist them with their daily activities. So it kind of varies by department. There's some departments I'm very comfortable with working home from home. There's some departments that I'm not as comfortable with. And then at the end of the day, as city manager, I do have to weigh the safety, welfare of the staff and looking at productivity as well and trying to have an easy medium between the both in order to ensure that staff is safe, they're able to perform their job, and we have a proper complement of people that are at the city hall that's able to do their work that are essential as well.
Mr. Mayor, I'm fully supportive of the closing. My question was the similar one that the mayor was raising. I just want to be more clear because if we're shutting down at home, whatever department, I wanted to be kind of like, and I'll use the clerk example. If I call the 2-800, whatever, it's going to go to someone's phone at home or wherever they are assigned at. I've gotten complaints from residents and or business people. They've called our numbers and nobody's answering. Before we did the at home, which is going to voicemail, and I explained to them, you know, we're working remotely, as they use that term, on site, but just make sure whoever's responsible, accountable with the directors, who else would be answering the phone, if someone were to call the number, that they are answering, taking a message, even if they can't do anything about it, but it gets relayed to the right department, because after all, they're still working. And I'm assuming that we have that technology that those phones can go to whomever department, whoever's assigned at home to answer it or whatever, to put that call through to whatever. That's what I want to make sure of. So I'd like to see, you know, the comprehensive whatever, but I'm just talking about the real gist of it because we're going to shut down City Hall. But we're not shutting down government. I understand the safety, social distance, not having folks there. But if someone were to call your office or whomever office, and you'd be able to reach someone to get a response, we'll get back to you. They're not in office today, they'll be there tomorrow, whatever, so that the business of the city goes on. And then the flexibility of having folks come as needed for the audits or whatever documentation, paperwork that has to be done in-house. I'll leave that to your judgment, but that's what I was really referencing. And Mr. Mayor, at the time after you finished the discussion, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the getting the word out with the safer at homes when you get to that point. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Mr. Pay, could you please give us an update? I know a few weeks ago, I know we requested a call center, and we also passed legislation for the establishment of one, because that's been a big concern with this community for quite a while, is customer service and getting in touch with people. Where are we in that process of getting that finalized and executed?
Nelson, can you please provide the mayor with a detailed update on that matter?
Yes, good evening. As of earlier this afternoon, I did receive a call from the vendor. The phones have shipped, and we will be receiving a delivery date between today and tomorrow. Once those phones are in, I would say it would probably take another 2 weeks to get them rolled out, tested, and configured, and we can go ahead and roll out the call center. But just to be extra clear to the point that Commissioner Kelly made, with our existing technology, we can transfer the phones to cell phone numbers or a collection of the numbers, so it's invisible to the callers.
So with the ability of the call center, that they will be able to, like, for example, we call the city main line, they want to get in touch with the clerk's office or the city manager's office, that person with that phone will be able to make that transfer with that phone, and they can go back and forth. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Also, in terms of the Wi-Fi for city employees, so we distributing laptops and all that, how do we make sure that they are online and have the ability to go online and fast enough internet service to take care of all that stuff? What's the status of that?
So the first time we rolled out the laptops, everyone had their own internet provider with the exception of one. And the one person who did not have internet access at home, we provided a wireless hotspot to them so they can continue working. Each computer that we issue has a VPN client, which they have their username and password to, which logs at what time they logged in, what time they logged out, and IT can see that and keep record of what's going on. But we are prepared that if an employee does not have internet access at home, that we can order a hotspot, LTE hotspot, to provide them the access so they can continue providing the services.
Okay. All right. Yeah, my biggest thing is seeing what it looks like. What does this new government look like during the COVID-19 era? And with a clear understanding of what are our objectives and performance measures, so that we're clear about what those work tasks that individual employees are doing, that funnels all into the overall vision of this commission, and also the basic services that we provide as the city of Opa-locka, and also making sure that we are aware of what that looks like. So as long as those are in place, I'm hoping to get that pretty soon though, because if we're shutting down or thinking about shutting down the city, we really need to get a clear understanding of what the performance will be for this government that is still assessing taxes. So, Mr. Manager, you have anything else on COVID?
Nothing else in regards to COVID-19, Mr. Mayor.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, I asked if I can be excused. My mother just got rushed to the hospital.
Yes, sir. Is
so
Mr. Ellis on?
Yes, Mr. Ellis is on the line.
All right. Mothers are in our prayers. All right. Handle your business, sir.
Mr. Ellis?
I'm here, sir. I'm here.
So we're going over strategic planning. We need to talk about 2105 Alabama and what we're going to do with that building, as well as the goals for the department.
We're strategic planning already?
All right.
Mr. Mayor?
Excuse me?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Are we at strategic planning already?
No, sir. We're about to go once I think Mr. Manager is getting off. And I know that Mr. Ellis will be falling in his place, but however, I know we brought up the concern about the getting the word out about the social media. Mr. Manager through Ms. Mockins, you want to talk about that, or do you want to ask some specific questions, Commissioner Kelly?
Well, I was trying to follow up on what you're asking. So we're waiting 2 weeks before we have that customer service number. Is that what I was hearing? That someone can call? Is that what I was hearing? We won't have that up and running for 2 weeks? Is that what Mr. Nelson said? That's what I was trying to get clarity on.
I can't say specifically, Mr. Mayor, I apologize. Specifically 2 weeks, but right around 2 weeks is what we're anticipating. Yes.
So right now, then we're still just calling 2877 for mask, social distancing, whatever those kind of things related to customer service and/or COVID-19.
Well, this is just me speaking and thinking out loud. You know, if we were to shut down the building, it would be my responsibility to make sure that every phone number that the public is used to calling is answered by someone. There's, like you said, there's some positions that can't work or that can't have the ability to work from home. I think one of those employees would be a great person to take calls, to be a call taker per se, and handle the calls that don't get answered and maybe provide a response. But my job will be to ensure that whatever number of people are used to calling now is answered during any type of shutdown.
Okay, I appreciate that. I was really referring to the bigger picture. We have the challenge with folks wanting a number to call for COVID-19 related, you know, store doesn't let people in, people not social distancing, those things of that nature. That's what I thought I was hearing for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
I'm having to wait on that line.
Mr.
As
Mayor?
it stands now, we're just using the 2877 still? Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Ellis, I guess now.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I'm Mr. Ellis. You can respond.
I'm trying to get my video on, sir. You said again, please, Commissioner.
We were talking about the customer service and a line or where we could call. And I know we're working, according to Mr. Nelson, on technology for 2 weeks, et cetera. But I'm saying like right now, we've been talking about a number that folks can call if they have concerns or they feel a store is letting folks in without a mask or there's an area with social distancing. And we've been using the 2877. So my question is, until we get the technology in a couple weeks or whatever that may enhance that, we're still using 2877 as a contact number.
Nelson, could you clarify that for us, please? Because I'm not sure about that number. We still using the number. If we're using that number now, I'm quite sure we're still using it. But is that okay?
Yes, sir. That 953-2877 is the police direct number. That number is manned 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I would highly recommend that we continue using that number for issues related to businesses not following social distancing or anything like that, because ultimately the calls do go to the police department. Throwing another number out there without the new technology in place, I think will just create confusion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to know that had changed, so that's still the number. Thank you.
All right. So there was talk about the caravan and social media. Commissioner Kelly, you wanted to ask about that? I think Ms. Watkins. Commissioner Kelly, you want to clarify your points on that?
Yes, I thought you, yes, I was, we had got the email initially that we're going to do some type of caravan to get the word out and listen to the manager. I think we need to
Hey,
do
Gabriel.
that. We need to do that and as soon as possible in some phases. So I know we're talking about, you know, giving out masks, getting out in the community. So have there been any alternative dates? And I know the weather's supposed to be bad, but this is South Florida. You know, you just supposed to have rain and never have it happen. So we need to schedule that around the city and tie in giving out masks and let folks see us out there, or at least, you know, the city out there, whether we're physically out there or not or whatever, because that will go a long way in spreading the word too. And maybe with those masks, a little flyer reminding you of a social distance, all the things we talked about. But we need to do that. So Ms. Watkins, is there a alternative dates that you're looking at or time frame?
Yes, we were looking at next Saturday. This weekend, it was looking at 90% chance of rain. And if it's ever over 60%, when you have a client who is utilizing a budget, never recommend moving forward. I'm from Miami, so I know how the rain goes, but I couldn't recommend moving forward on Saturday with a 90% chance of rain and us investing into that electric billboard system to ride for the hours. However, we were looking at this Saturday coming up, it's 40% chance of rain. An email is going to Randy to request from the city commission whether or not next Saturday would be a good date, and if we can go with our morning time as we scheduled for this Saturday that we had to cancel.
So you're basically waiting, Mr. Mayor, you're basically waiting on the commission's availability now? That's what I'm hearing?
That will be the next step. It just confirming that everyone is available for next Saturday, then it will be next Saturday.
Okay, I know you're trying to do the billboard, I mean, that big truck or what have you. I still, Saturday's good, obviously, you know, people are potentially not at work, but I would hope that you would think about at least one weekday, and that might be challenging, but I would hope you think at least one weekday, and not considering possibly even Friday, but just, you know, there's something to consider, but if that works for the commission, that'll be fine. We just need to get it out in some form and get that word out, get those masks out there. We're giving them out and make that whole appeal. But that will go a long way. So I guess if my colleagues are amenable next Saturday, but I'm looking, I know the weather's issue, but I'm looking at a Friday at 6 or something. We just need to get out there as soon as we can, weather permitting. But the longer we got those masks sitting somewhere doing nothing, that doesn't help us get the word out. That's just my perspective. But thank you for your efforts, and I'll listen to my colleagues and see what their time frames are. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Kelly. I know for myself, weekdays will be very difficult for me. Saturday works well. Weekdays will be very difficult because I work after work. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor,
Vice Mayor?
just to kind of address Commissioner Kelly's availability, I think you said Friday works for him, and I think the weekend works better for you, Mr. Mayor. I yield to either one, to Ms. Markins. My availability is pretty flexible. I make arrangements either way. So the option, is better for everyone moving forward. I'll yield to that. Thank you.
Mayor Bright.
Yes.
For me, I would prefer the Saturday afternoon. And again, if that works for everyone, I'm in with it. I'm either way, but Saturday I would prefer. And I'm thinking that maybe Ms. Watkins can get a census of the commission now so she can move forward to save time. Thank you.
Exactly. Perfect. All right, Commissioner Burke.
Mr. Mayor, on Friday or Saturday, I'm very flexible. I'm still looking for a job. I don't have a job, so. So, yes, whenever y'all want to go, I'm ready to go.
You work on Tuesday.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Sorry about it, Mr. Mayor. I couldn't resist that.
Good. Y'all good. All right. So you got the word, Ms. Watkins. What you got? Anything else you need from us?
No, I would love it if I could give my report for this week on the activities. But if time doesn't permit, I understand.
All right, Mr. Ellis.
Yes, sir. Ms. Mark, you go ahead and give your report if it's possible. Is that okay, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. We've continued our efforts to alert the residents on COVID testing. These Opa-locka We're Working for You campaign, the COVID-19 awareness, and as well as the county's mask ordinance and curfew on social media. We issued press releases on the food drive, the commission's virtual training, as well as Census Day. Hilo News covered our Mask Up campaign launch, and CBS covered Opa-locka's commitment to feeding with an interview from Commissioner Joseph Kelly. We also issued a newsletter on the emergency county mask order. And the last step in the caravan for next Saturday would be for me to confirm that the vehicle is available. I should do that after we adjourn from this meeting, and I will have Randy to communicate on the exact time for Saturday. And that concludes my report, unless anyone has any questions.
Anyone else? All right. So does anyone have any other last words on COVID-19? All right, so I just want to continue to reiterate. Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Bass.
I'm sorry. I heard the city manager mention the Public Works Department. He mentioned City Hall, but I was wondering what was his take on the police department as it relates to the COVID testing or the results?
Well, I'm speaking from this is Mr. Mayor, this is George Ellis. I know the manager has allowed them to be able to, those who have tested positive to be off, and those who have been in proximity of those who have been positive to get retested. So I know at this point, we're having some people within the police department who are being retested for the COVID-19. So the same protocol that's taking place in every other department is taking place in the police department.
Thank you, sir. I was just wondering because I know we're already running at a skeleton's crew, and to have officers out sick, that adds to the workforce in the police department. So I was just wondering how that's working with the COVID. Thanks.
Well,
All right. So just to everyone, I think all of us got could step up our messaging when it relates to social distancing, mask wearing. This is a serious pandemic, and I know we have been doing what we can as a government to make sure that we feed people. We debated about masks like since the very, very beginning of this pandemic. And we're trying to make sure that things get done, but it is serious, very serious, and the health and fate of our community stands on this. So let's continue to step up our messaging on that. And Mr. Ellis and to my colleagues, I know that we were scheduled to be here today to focus on strategic planning.
yes, sir.
And I wanted to make sure whether or not with the manager, we're able to have a very good, fruitful conversation with that. I know myself, I would prefer the manager be a part of that conversation. But Ellis, if you have the floor and you have staff ready, we are down to go. But to my colleagues, Mr. Ellis, and then to my colleagues, we want to move forward.
Okay, I would agree with that, but there are a few things I think we can talk about as far as strategic planning today. And one of them is I think that Commissioner Kelly was concerned about Ingram Park. So if I would like for our Public Works Director to address some of those issues as far as what we plan for that particular park. And then if my Park and Recreation Director is on, Mr. Brown, I'd like him also to talk a little bit about what we plan on doing with that park and in the future. So if Mr. Alston and Mr. Brown is available, can we talk about that today, gentlemen?
All right. Is it are you doing just Ingram Park, or is there other things that you want to go over today? Could you lay them out for us?
Well, we want to start out with Ingram Park, and then I'm gonna let Mr. Brown go in to talk about some of the other issues that some of the other things that they plan on doing with the parks in the future.
So
and then after that, sorry.
Keep going.
And after that, we'd like to talk with the building, I think, the Cultural Arts Center on Alabama, the fact that what we want to do with that in the future, because we're about completed with that as far as renovations, and finding out what the commission is concerned about is in relationship to what they'd like to see the utilization at in the future.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it for right now, sir.
So for strategic planning today, we're talking about Ingram Park and the Cultural Arts Center.
Those are the two things that I will be talking about today. Yes, sir. And anything else that the commission may want to talk about, then we could bring it forth. But that is what, because the manager was going to be able to move forward with that. But those are two things that I was working on, that I was a part of, that I know was a part of the planning.
Okay. All right. To my colleagues, you want to move, anyone has any reservations of moving forward with those?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Kelly?
I mean, I know we were going to talk a whole lot about a lot of different things. And I do appreciate the fact that hopefully we're going to talk about Ingham Park, but well, they can give us a report on that, but I would like to talk about the Cultural Arts building for sure, because I know the manager mentioned that was a time sensitive issue on what the commission wants to see in that building. So I think we definitely need to talk about that, even if we don't get into parks too much. What we're going to do with that building, since they're so close to completely, you mentioned it last night, and the commission meeting about talking about it. So I think we definitely need to address that, or at least give them some suggestions on what we want to see in that facility.
All right. Anyone else? Anything you want to discuss, or whether they want to move forward?
Mr. Mayor, I'm ready to move forward. My concern was, of course, on Parks and Rec. As you know, Commissioner Kelly and myself, has agreed to host the upcoming Parks Forum. Of course, the rest of the commission, we're hoping will attend. But also, as a point of concern, the Cultural Arts Center on Alabama Avenue. I know we got CDBG funds to kind of bring that building online. And like Commissioner Kelly alluded to, you know, it might be time sensitive. I know we had a change order and different other aspects more recently associated with that project. So if we could just kind of get a brief discussion from Mr. Ellis and staff as far as like where we are and what are the next steps. I greatly appreciate that.
Awesome. All right, then let's move forward. I know one thing that I do want to make sure is a part of this conversation, and I hear about this Parks Forum. I know at very least 6 months ago, we asked for a comprehensive report on our parks and facilities, getting a clear understanding of how we're going to maximize and utilize all of our facilities, including our parks and also the staffing associated with that. So I'm hoping that this conversation about Ingram Park and the cultural arts is a part of a comprehensive conversation about all of our parks. I'm personally just not fond of working in silos with what's going on here and what's going on there, but making sure this is a network. So that's what I'm looking for. That's what I hope that we're talking about, and that we're going to get some type of comprehensive understanding of what we can do innovatively with our parks all throughout the city of Opa-locka. So Mr. Ellis, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Mr. Austin, are you available? Sir?
Yes, sir.
Can we talk a little bit about Ingram Park?
Yes. Mr. Mayor? Ingram Park, we have obtained a piggyback bid to finish the replacement of the roofing. It's coming forward at the next meeting in July for commission approval for us to move forward with that project. We've submitted all requested forms to Miami-Dade County on the CDBG to start the relighting project for the same park. Purchase orders have been issued to the vendors to repair the 2 pavilions in that facility. So work is progressing, and we hope to have it wrapped up before November this year. That's all I have at Ingram Park. As it relates to 2105 Alibaba, the project is 37% complete. And like the manager said, we need to get a determination as to what the facility will be utilized for. Currently, the facility is being built out as an open architecture design. So whatever the needs are, we could easily adapt it to those uses after the current work is complete.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Austin. Any questions?
Well, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Kelly.
Thank you. Regarding 2105, so what Mr. Austin, if I'm hearing correctly, it's you really want to know what the commission desires to do with the building and the space. Is that the really the request regarding 2105? You're at that point now?
Correct, sir. Yes.
And the mayor might remember, because I know we had a forum or something down there with community development some years ago. It might be outdated now, but there was discussion of what the citizens wanted at that time. I'm not even saying those citizens are still there, but do we still have that information from what they requested? Because we did go down there, they did give their input. I remember we had the meeting in the Kaboom Park that we participated in. And I know at that time they wanted to make sure that it was community use. There was discussions about computers and education components, people to come in and get assistance and those kind of things. Do we still have that report? And I guess, Mr. Mayor, that probably would go to community development if they're on the line. But do we have that report or that information still, Mr. Ellis, Mr. Austin?
Well, I'm not familiar with that information, Commissioner, but I'm gonna ask Mr. Gay if he's on the line to please, on the Zoom, to please give us an update if he has any information concerning that. Mr. Gay, through the mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Manager. We do still have we actually provided a memo to the manager based on that meeting that was held at Kaboom Park, and that was actually held approximately 2 years ago from this particular month, because it was held in the month of July. We basically went through a synopsis and we provided a bullet points as to some of the things that the community talked about, some of the things that had been expected. So we do have that information. We can actually update it and forward that information through the city manager's office so that you have an updated version to see what were the concerns that the community wanted to have as it relates to that particular building.
Mayor?
Mr. Kelly?
So the manager has not received any of that information as of this moment? From no, 2 years ago?
No.
He has not?
I haven't received it. Mr. Gay, have you sent that to our office?
I don't believe.
I haven't seen it.
When this information was sent, it was 2 years ago. It was under the previous manager. I'm pretty sure the manager, Mr. Pape, probably has not gone back and reviewed what was received by the previous manager. So we can basically update that information and provide it tomorrow.
Well, I think, Mr. Mayor, you and I at the time heard kind of what the consensus probably has changed a little bit so I'd like to hear my new colleagues, what their thought process is, but I do know we need to provide some direction as they build this out, what we want to see in there. And I know from talking to the manager, and as he mentioned last night in the commission meeting, he's really waiting on our direction. So I hope tonight we can give some kind of general idea, if we're not specific, as to what we want to see. I think that's where we ought to really spend the focus, because I know that is a kind of time sensitive. Mr. Mayor, I know I missed some things that was part of that. If you remember anything else that the community kind of talked about to add on, and then I'd like to hear my colleagues what their thoughts about it. Thank you.
Yes, back 2 years, it literally was 2 years ago. I actually got the Facebook memory a few days ago. In reviewing that, because that's what made me look back and think about what was discussed. A lot of the big consensus was because we only had, it was a few participants, number one, and those participants from the generation that kind of still hang out around the park. So when we think about parks and recreation, many times we thinking about things for the youth, and it wasn't much representation of youth and young generation there. But at the time, what was discussed, proposed, was what was there before. And it was more so the set building. It was an old set building where they was able to get a process. I think it was Social Security food stamp, something of that nature. They was able to process community network that was there to provide services for families in the area. And that was mostly what was discussed. I don't really hear any nuances about that. So that's what I recall from the meeting. So I'll give it up to my colleagues to discuss more, but I really would like to see something from staff that talks about all of our facilities. Like right now, I don't have a clear picture, and in my mind I kind of do, but how much square footage do we have in our park facilities? How many rooms do we have? How many can be classrooms? How many can be training areas? Can we do a martial arts studio over there? Can we do a dance studio over there? Do we have programming for those things? Can we have a game room? Like what are the different things that we can do that is within our power and our fiscal responsibility to do, and the staffing to do. So that's what I hope we can get, so we can be a little more like precise with our suggestions, instead of just throwing ideas out. So that's my 2 cents. Commissioner Bass.
Yes, sir. What about the police department?
That's actually another point, but I think it's too small for that. It may be too small.
Sorry. Is it larger than what they have now?
True.
And it's not next to a school with special need kids?
Mm.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Well,
good point. Commissioner Burke.
Funny she said that. I was going to say that myself. The police department, I guess, needs to be in a standalone building by themselves. And matters of fact, the police department was there before. The police department was there on the first floor, and I think on the second floor, which we were able to get into from inside or walk the stairs. There was something else on the second floor, but the police department has been in that building before. Now, the space that they're taking now on Fisherman, if we're talking about right now at COVID, I don't think nobody's renting anything at this time anyhow. So, but the police department should be in a standalone building, and I think until we can get finance to remodel the present police department or tear down and build a new one, I think that's a thought. Just my thought. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
No, who's that?
Mayor?
Oh,
Mr. Ellis.
Go ahead.
Mr. Ellis, speak like Ms. Ellis.
Say that again.
I think Mr. Ellis was before.
Yes, I want to interject on something that the commissioner said.
Oh yeah, Commissioner, Mr. Ellis.
Yes, that building in the past was used by the city of Opa-locka Police Youth Academy. It was housed there for many years on upstairs and downstairs. And so when Burke said about the police department, Commissioner Burke mentioned the police department, they had a program there, and downstairs, the police officers used it as a outpost or like a substation. So it was had a youth academy that was funded by the Department of Juvenile Justice on the second floor, and it was a police substation on the first floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I?
Mr. Mayor Davis.
Thank you. Yeah, just to echo the concerns about the police department. I, for one, would like to have that conversation. I don't know if we got the time tonight to kind of bring it up, but I would like to see it addressed at a future date. I share Commissioner Burke's concern, about the building. I don't think it's, the best idea to have our police department on the second floor. I know we personally have had, several complaints from community members on the response time for our police calls. And, I don't think, it's a good idea to, police officers to have to get on the elevator before responding to an emergency. So maybe we could look at that somewhat long term. And just to kind of travel back a little bit and talk about the Kaboom Park. As you all know, I kind of worked at that park at its inception with many of the community members. It was a park designed and actually built by the people who live in the Magnolia North community. So some of the things they shared over the years, have been bathrooms. As you know, the park, it's a passive park, so there's no recreational facility or no bathrooms. That's been one point of concern. Another point of concern has also been garbage pickup. So there has never been any consistent or official garbage pickup at the park since it's been operational. So that's something personally, I would like to see moving forward. See that addressed so we can ensure that we're keeping it beautified and clean for our community. Outside of that, the set center and its renovation, just having feedback from the community. Of course, at one point, it operated as a community center, not actually providing any direct service. So when we had, I think the city of Opa-locka budgeted for staff, but there were no official programs being funded ever from the set center through the city. Every program was a referral program. So they worked with, DCF to administer the food stamp program, career source, as far as, workforce development and handling jobs and, providing an opportunity for residents to come in and, revamp their resumes or the like. So, that was the kind of model that existed in the past with the set center. Going forward, I would be more in favor of, kind of seeing the integration of the set center in the park in some way. I don't know if it's within budget to provide direct programming. And again, this is just my, my opinion. Of course, we ultimately have to decide as a board. But I know, given the feedback that I received over the years, there's always been a concern about bathrooms, and just having some tie to the set center. I think many of the residents agreed with, the set center and really liked the services that they were being provided. Of course, because of building related challenges, we had to kind of shut it down for a while and here we are picking it back up. So I would more likely want to see some integration of the set center into the park, whatever that looked like. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Commissioner Burke?
I was just listening to the vice mayor. You're saying you you would be looking for the bathrooms at the set center to be used by the park?
I mean, I think every park should have bathrooms.
Exactly.
Because in my experience with working with community members, if you don't give them a bathroom, if somebody's at the park and they got to use a bathroom, they're going to use it.
My exactly. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor Praggett?
Commissioner Bass?
To Vice Mayor, just a little clarity. You're saying that you would like to see some of the services that were provided at the set center to be a part of Ingram Park. Is that what you're saying?
No, Commissioner. I was referring to the Kaboom Tot Lot.
Okay.
Passive park that don't have regular garbage pickup or standalone bathrooms. So, of course, the set center has been closed for a number of years now. Of course, when it was open, many of the residents could, who would visit the park, they could just kind of go into the set center and, use the restrooms. But being that it has been closed, I know it's been a main point of concern for residents that, they would like to have access to bathrooms and, and actually have some tie to the set center as far as social services being offered to the community.
Yeah. May I?
Commissioner Bass.
Okay, thank you. I was gonna ask a question to Mr. Austin, if that's okay, Mayor Praggett. He mentioned the work that's being done at Ingram Park, and he also mentioned November. Is he saying November the work will be completed? Is that what he's saying?
We hope to get the work at least started by November. The bathroom roof would be completed before November, but the lighting, we would like to have that started before November.
Do you have a tentative date that the park will probably be reopened through the mayor?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I would like to just ask my colleagues the question because right now we don't have a comprehensive plan, and I know I'm kind of the only one just saying it. Does anyone else want to see a comprehensive plan for our facilities?
Of course.
Mayor?
Mayor, I for one would love to see a comprehensive plan. You know, I was just speaking on behalf of Magnolia North just because, you know, my personal experience with it. But of course, I would like to be honest, I would like to see I would like to see a comprehensive plan for the entire city. You know, not just parks. To be honest. As a part of that, I feel our parks should be included. I know we've been trying to you know, tackle things in silos, as you know, sometimes our problems can seem overbearing. But yeah, I mean, I for one would love to see it. I mean, I don't know if that's the right starting point. Like maybe we should do something comprehensive and then dive into, you know, the specific components. But you know, here we are with the set center, which is expected to come online, you know, this upcoming fiscal year, and you know, we have the opportunity to potentially have a discussion, put some dollars towards it. So you know, I don't want to miss that either. So you know, I hear you.
Yes, that's what I'm concerned about, because I got you, Commissioner Kelly. Because if we're talking about the set center and it comes online, and let's say we program something there, and then we're talking about Ingram Park, and it's like we were pushing to open it up, but open it up to do what? And that's the thing, is like, to do what? Like, how many staff are we going to put over there? What's going to be the program schedule over there? We're doing these renovations on the park, but what's the end goal for it? And that's what, Mr. Ellis, I would love for you to chime in.
I will.
And we just talked about the set center, but the police, is that even a possibility for us to do that? Like, where is that guidance so that we can understand how this works throughout the city? Because we can open up the Cultural Arts Center. We can talk about these ideas. We can talk about Ingram Park. What about Siegel Park? And do we have the staffing, and what's the change in the budget to program every single one of those parks? Because I think literally all of our facilities are underused, even Shabundi. They're underused. So what are we doing to utilize all of our things, and what's the plan to get there? So that's the thing. Commissioner Kelly and Mr. Ellis.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think they're two separate issues. The first issue, in my opinion, listening to the manager previously last night and then today, we need to give the staff, himself included, some direction on 2105, whatever that is. Now, it's interesting because we were saying set in some regards, we're saying police department in some regard. So the first thing we got to decide, and my question was, because I know we got these funds through CDBG, were there any restrictions on what could be put on there based on CDBG funds? That's the first question I want to ask, because sometimes when you're pursuing those funds, you pursue them based on you're going to do certain things with the money or whatever you're going to build or revamp. Are there any restrictions on whatever can be used for the facility as a result of those funds, or it's just wide open? That Mr. Mayor, is to the manager office.
Yeah.
Is that it? Question? Mr. Kelly, is that all your questions?
No, that's not all, but that first one, because that if it's restricted, that'll answer some of our questions right there. But I think the question or the discussion of Ingram Park or Siegel Park is not really for today, because the manager, if you recall, was working on, as you indicated, things regarding COVID-19, how the parks are going to look, how we potentially want them to look. And that's one reason why we're going to do the Park Summit in August, because they are underutilized. But the improvements that he's talking about in Ingram Park with lighting, bathroom, those things got to be done no matter what program you do. So they're not really tied to whatever you're going to eventually do. You need bathrooms regardless. We need lights regardless. So those things are not a part of the overall plan of the future underuse, overuse. That's, to me, is not the discussion for this workshop. To me, this discussion, because of the time-sensitive nature, what do we recommend to the manager for 2105? I think all the concerns you're raising about the comprehensive plan for parks or parks usage, I totally agree with it, but I don't think we can get that tonight because the manager's not on. And I know he's still working on putting all that together. But I think the commission needs to give some direction because I'm hearing two different things: set program or set activities versus police department if it can be done. And that's why it's the question, can those funds be used? Since we redid the building, is there restriction? That would say a whole lot, Mr. Mayor, to the manager.
All right, Mr. Ellis, you answer that question along with what's in our budget, or what we budgeted to do in that building.
Okay, I'm gonna have to once again refer to Mr. Austin in relationship to the budget, what was put into the building to renovate it, and to was there any restrictions on what it could be utilized for. But I have a couple more things I'd like to speak about concerning that building. Mr. Austin?
Mr. Mayor, the funding was obtained with the premise that the facility was going to be used as a community center. There were no implied restrictions with the receipt of the funding, just that we met the deadline to have the facility renovated. So right now, there are no restrictions for use other than a community center.
Wait a minute, what? I'm confused. Other than a community center?
No, sorry, for a community center. I apologize.
So it can be used for, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. I'm trying to get a clarity. So it can be used for anything?
We requested the funds based on the use of a community center.
I got that, but now the commission is possibly talking about a police department. Would there be a problem because we obtained the funds based on community use?
That I would have to request clarification from CDBG.
Well, okay, to me, Mr. Mayor, and to my colleague, that's a major question. And I'm going back historically, when you get some of these funding, when you put these requests based on what you're going to do, sometimes you are favored because of what you want to do. And we know there's a need for social services and or programming in that area. So we got the funding based on that. So if we did that, obviously there's no restrictions. We can look at the police department possibility, but if not, then that tells me right there, we got to do something community-wide use. And then that goes to your question, Mr. Mayor, that I guess Mr. Ellis is going to answer. Are we projecting the dollars for it? And number two, what is the square footage up and down? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Ellis?
Yes, concerning the building utilization, we've had several organizations that have approached us about utilizing that facility, where they will be responsible for the upkeep and paying and the cost for maintaining the building. We have not taken any further yet because we want to come to commission to find out what they want to do and to find out what would be the process for that to take place. The other issue, the question that you asked Commissioner Kelly in relationship to what the cost of, you want to know the cost of operating a program there or the cost for renovating? Which answer did you want?
It was how much we have budgeted in order to operate that center. If they were going to do something there, how much do we have to do something over there?
Well,
the budget is already set because we know that is already programmed. We already passed whatever we need to pass to get the renovations complete. And I think there may be a little bit of dollars to do some additional touch-ups to it. But for right now, I'm thinking about moving forward after renovations.
Right.
Do you have anything to add to that? No? All right, Mr. Ellis.
Yeah, moving forward, we were looking, like I said, we were looking at, without there being any cost to the city, we were looking at some of the nonprofits. We haven't looked at what their proposals were, but they have approached us in about the utilization of that facility. Some of those, one of those organizations are currently utilizing space in Shabani Village that approached us in relationship to utilizing that particular property. So we haven't come to any conclusion with that, but those are some of the things we're looking at if there was not enough funding in our budget to be able to operate that. And as you know, our budget right now is fluctuating based on the events that's taking place currently in our society. So the manager office has not considered those yet. We have been approached by that, and we probably will bring it. Probably when the manager meets again concerning this matter, he probably will bring some idea or thought about what our thoughts are about those organizations that have approached us and what they're soliciting as far as utilization and for the upkeep of that facility.
Mr. Ellis.
Yes, sir.
Is the manager's office going to choose an organization that approached them to program?
No, sir. No, sir. Not at this moment. I'm saying that's what has occurred. What occurred when my discussion with our public works director, when we were looking at getting that building renovated, was what we're going to do to be able to upkeep it, to keep it functioning, keeping the repairs done, keeping it operational. And at that particular time, a couple of organizations approached us because they asked us about that building and approached us in relationship to utilization of that building. We have not come to any conclusion, or have we solicited through any RFP process, anything else concerning it. But when we're talking about that building, there's a cost that goes to that building. So when we talk about do we have in our budget currently, we don't have any operational dollars for anything in that budget list for that building. So that was one of the alternatives that we had by utilizing because they asked for a community center. Then we talk about either community, a nonprofit who could do that operation, or what could we do as a city to be able to utilize that building.
All right.
So it goes. Let me just finish one thing. It goes into what you're talking about what are we planning to do holistically, and that's a part of the process that's taking place right now. I think with the virus and all the things that are going on in the community, it kind of limits to what you can look at as far as resources to utilize that particular facility.
All right. So we've been, as I said, wanting a comprehensive park plan, and now we want to do a park summit. I think this is something as is an opportunity for us as a community during this time to figure that out, hear from staff about the various options, do a RFP to see what are the options out there, and for us to get our community members to weigh in on a workshop. So full in support of all of us. Well, basically the city hosting, like you said, a summit to talk about this parks plan and what are the ideas, and get community input to make that happen. That's what it sounds like. We need to figure out what we can do in that area. And what I'm hearing from staff is that we don't want to allocate too much because of COVID. We got some nonprofits that may be able to program it. We're still unclear about where the direction of the commission wants to go. So there's a lot of, just unclear.
If you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to interject a little bit more.
Hold on, Mr. Ellis. Hold on. So to my colleagues, and I know Commissioner Kelly and I know the manager talked about trying to decide on something right now. Do we want to ask for management to put together some ideas, do a RFP, have that information ready for a park summit where we can present that along with thoughts from ourselves and also the community, and really start to fine tune a programming, like you said, Commissioner Kelly and Vice Mayor Davis.
Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Burke.
Mr. Mayor, you know what, I think this conversation should have been done with the city manager here, because right now we don't know what his ideas are, and there's some questions that's being answered that I'm not sure that I'm hearing the right thing, but I think this should be done with the city manager present. No disrespect to Mr. Ellis, but I think the city manager is going to be moving the city forward. So I think it's only fair that He's here and he's a part of this. Thank you.
Mayor? Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Kelly, you have the floor.
Oh, I couldn't hear you. Obviously, I would, want the manager to weigh in, and I'm quite sure he will weigh in. The question was asked of the staff, including the manager, to get the ideas of the commission. I think the first question that has to be asked is to find out if there are any restrictions on the use based on the CDBG funding. So until we get that question answered, and Mr. Austin said he's got to find out, I think any other discussion to me is on hold, because if there are restrictions, it's going to restrict any other use. I hear a couple of my colleagues, potentially even 3, saying about the police department. Well, if that's what the commission decides to do, that'll take care of that, what's going to happen in the building, and they'll build it out based on that. But if there are restrictions on how you obtain the funding, then that would dictate. So to me, until we can get that answered, and Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Austin, would you be able to have that information by the time we would meet again, I guess next week for strategic planning or what have you, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think he said it has to be a community center.
Well, he said it, but he kind of said he needed to verify it and check it. So I don't know which one
I'll have clarity on that tomorrow, Mr. Mayor. I'll have clarity tomorrow.
Yeah, so he's thinking, Mr. Mayor, he's saying he thinks, but he's not sure. So we need to be sure, because if it restricts the usage, then that'll, tell us what we can go with. So I think that will give the manager a chance to weigh in, and you'll just have to wait another week. They can't do too much more until we get that clarified. But at least he's heard some ideas, police department versus some form of outreach, i.e. set or whatever component. I will say, Mr. Mayor, that part of the summit and the information that the manager will be working on for us for that would engage nonprofits and or best uses for all of our facilities. So I know that is a part of what we're looking at for the summit for the parks for the commission. But I was just really speaking specifically more at 2105, because they said that they needed to get some direction right now, is what I kept hearing. That's why I was focusing on that. So to me, Mr. Mayor, I don't think we can go any further on this item or this issue until he finds that out or clarifies that point. And we'll know that by tomorrow, whenever. So it'll be front and center for next week's discussion. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Bass.
If I may, once he gets that answer, is it possible for us to get the answer ASAP? So by the time we meet again, we'll all have, a really good thought of what we would like to see once we get the clarification of if we can have the police department or it has to be a center. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Ellis, you want to go before Vice Mayor Davis?
No, let the Vice Mayor go. That'd be great. Let the Vice Mayor.
Okay, go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know staff is going to look into the matter, but just my limited knowledge with CDBG funds, there's not a lot of wiggle room as far as doing any sort of public safety type projects. They usually are, really strict, usually community focused. So you either got to have some sort of community services or, CDBG is also subsidizing the lights, at Ingram Park. So similar to like those type of projects, CDBG usually fund, not really, public safety. Now that we're, at this time and given, what's happening on the national stage and, how we are preparing for the budget and, reshaping our parks and police department, it might be an opportunity to create like a public safety component. We talk about community policing and, and that sort of thing. And I know the SET Center at one point in time served as a substation, or they utilized the second floor for some services for the police department. So maybe we can explore something like that. Mr. Austin, I would kind of look for like that sort of discretion with it, because I know that CDBG funds are very, I mean, most grant funds are very, you know, direct, and ultimate grant is a contract, so there's not a lot of wiggle room from how you submit. So that's all, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Ellis.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You're absolutely correct, Mr. Vice Mayor and Commissioner Kelly. That information we'll find out tomorrow and give you a definite answer on that. But like I was saying, that building in the past has been utilized in conjunction with a program that was conducted by the police department and had a substation at the bottom. I know it's a great need for us to have our police in that area, specifically with the park being next door. So we're going to look into it, and we should have all the information back to you tomorrow as far as what the utilization of that building is for. I think that the summit is what the manager really want to utilize to get everybody's thoughts together after we work together trying to look at where we're going to be going with the COVID-19 situation, so we can have a really strong plan for our parks. The other thing I like to express to all the commissioners is that, and to the mayor, is that anytime I speak only on those issues that I know of, that I've talked to the manager about. So I want you all to be clear that I don't speak on my own. I speak in relationship to my responsibilities to the manager of the city of Opa-locka. Thank you very much.
All right. So in preparation for our next conversation, if we can make sure that we have a memo that clearly details the use, what we can use the facility for, but also include the following points. What is the capacity of the building? What is the square footage of the building? What it would cost us in terms of basic maintenance of the building, and also if we have various programs in there. What are the nonprofit options that are available for programming? What is our ability to staff the actual center? How will it be connected to other services? And how will all this play into a COVID-19 reality? If we can have those basic understandings along with some options to help to inform our conversation, that would be very helpful. And also I would love to encourage the manager's office to speak individually with us to get more, help us understand those details a little more and think through some of our ideas a little more, so that when we come together, we can be clear moving forward. So with that, it looks like we covered what we would cover today. Is there any other final thoughts before we move to adjourn?
No, that's it.
Motion
All
to
right.
adjourn.
All right, sounds good. Then motion to adjourn by Commissioner Burke.
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Davis. Everyone have a good evening. Play safe, stay safe. Make sure you have a manager in your prayers and his family. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.